Hmm.
Crowley? Conflicts from Councillor Crowley, Councillor Neal. Declare. Mr Mayor, any conflicts? Thank you, sir. As this meeting is being run jointly with the Infrastructure and Assets Committee due to related agenda items, I ask all councillors present to now disclose any conflicts of interest on an item on tonight's governance committee agenda. So, Councillor Walsh or Councillor Stan, anything to declare?
Nothing to declare.
If you want.
Answer.
I assumed you have nothing. Yes. You're normally pretty forthcoming at the outside.
You shouldn't assume anything, actually.
Okay, sorry, my apologies.
Yes, so as a non-voting member of both committees, I have nothing to declare.
Oh, okay, perfect, thank you. Item 1.6. Oh, sorry.
Chair, it's Councillor Castles here. I did put in a request to come in via AV Link for medical reasons today, hence why I'm here. I don't know if that's come up as yet because I didn't have any volume at all up until about 30 seconds ago.
That's been accepted.
Thank you.
Carson, you just got to do Kyle.
She was the one who told me not to.
Both.
Okay. Well, that's already been passed now.
I have to rescind it, but I don't think we need to.
Yeah.
That's
Okay. I might just leave that for now. Thank you. Item solved by exception. I think given there's 2 items on tonight's agenda, I don't personally want to move anything to be resolved by exception. Does anyone want to be resolved by exception?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Confirmation of minutes. I now call for a movement for the recommendation as the motion. Second the minutes from the last meeting. Councillor Neal, I will second that. Now put the motion. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand and keep it raised. Miss. Perfect. Okay. Moving on to the meeting items of the agenda. Item 2.1, the December 2025 Q2 operational plan and quarterly budget review statement. It's now my absolute pleasure to invite Director Marissa Rackamalera, Director of Corporate Services, to speak to the report.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll keep this really brief because I am going to invite some subject matter experts to speak. The Q2 report is Council's legislated mechanism for reporting back to the community on our progress on our operational plan to date, the capital works completed to date, and also how we're tracking with the budget, and then request any budget amendments. I'll take the report as read, but I would like to just highlight a couple of key points in that overall there is a strong performance from council. We're really happy with the direction that we're heading in. We seem to be on track for most items. For any items that are not quite on track, there are plans in place to deal with those. There are some minor amendments to the forecasted outcomes, and what I'll do now is ask Nicole Jenkins, our Executive Officer, to come to the table and speak to the items in the operational plan, and post that Emma Galea, our CFO, to speak to the financial items. Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you, Director, and through the Chair. With regards to progress of the operational plan, we have 57 external reported actions and 57 external reported KPIs. As the Director has mentioned, positive progress and mostly on track. However, I do want to address the items that are off track. Of the 57 actions, 1 is delayed, and that action in your papers is DP 014. Our committed action is to commence implementation of our DIAP within the current financial year.
The Disability Action Plan.
Correct. Unfortunately, we don't document on execution at the moment, so we are working towards having adoption to allow implementation within this financial year. So we're confident that we can achieve that. Within the 57 KPIs, there are 5 delayed. The first being DP 057. This regards to percentage scheduled parks and reserve maintenance. A minor below target at 86% of target of 90%. Council officers have provided a detailed explanation of that variance due to wet weather, but in particular the inability of the tractor to get onto site. Fortunately, roadside vegetation maintenance is on track. So we are confident on a year-to-date track. The second KPI that is delayed is DP 073 relating to customer satisfaction, below target year to date, with action plans in place to reach our target for the year. Similarly, for our percentage calls to customer service being answered in under 3 minutes, in the quarter we were below the target percentage, and that was attributed to the high call volume. 2 major factors in that time. A number of key events took place in the quarter coming up to the Christmas period, our consultation regarding the proposed SV, and of course, the fire event. So we are very much aware of what drove those core volumes. DP 103, this item refers to the kilometres of footpath and shared pathways. The council officer has provided a detailed explanation regarding project delays. Unfortunately, because of the nature of these projects, the footpath work happens at the end. The delayed projects means that we will not be able to achieve the KPI that we had set at the beginning of the year. And I did want to bring that information to the committee tonight, because it's important that we preempt that, knowing that it will be impossible to meet that target. The team have already started addressing that in the forward plan for next year, and can be certainly a point of conversation at the workshop on the weekend. And lastly, DP 185, health inspections below target, but we have a targeted blitz in Q3 to bring that back on track. So of those 5, sorry.
What was the last one? Sorry.
DP 185 relating to the health inspection program. So of the 5 KPIs that are delayed, 4 we are confident to meet the target, but 1 we acknowledge won't be able to meet.
While we've got you, we might take questions from yourself, and then once Emma speaks, we'll take questions from Emma. So a few questions from me. In terms of the mowing, are we looking at any new equipment or anything like that that may be able to assist with wet weather events moving forward?
Through with your permission, if I could refer to Brett Sherrard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you just repeat so I got exact?
So obviously had 2 quarters in a row where the mowing has been behind target. What are we doing differently to address it? For example, are we getting any new equipment that may assist in mowing during wet conditions?
So I think the first quarter we were above target. It was the second quarter. We had extensive rain in that 3-month period, and with the big tractors, they just can't get on to the grounds. When we set our target at 90%, the 10% that we know we're likely to miss is rain delays. This current quarter, we haven't had a lot of rain, so you'll find a much higher percentage of completion this time. Like, we're actually only tracking 1% below our target year to date. And so far, January, February, and even though we've had some rain, it's been quick rain, runoff, absorbed. So that's how we're going to get back on track for this one. Our machinery is very efficient machinery. We have quite large machines. We run like mower decks that are the biggest ones on our sport that are 20 foot wide or 6 metres wide. We run like 2.5 metre, 3 metre decks on our other machines. They can operate in all weather, so air conditioning. So it doesn't matter if it's raining, it doesn't matter if it's dusty, they operate regardless, WHS reasons. It is purely these big heavy machines in really, like, we had a substantial period of rain.
Amen.
Sure.
Please. And I think one of the really important points is the work that Brett's team has been undertaking with Clean and Fleet to investigate the provision of remote control mowers in the future, which would enable additional work in wet weather. And I don't know whether you want to add and provide a little bit of value about what that will look like once we are able to procure that machinery.
So we're looking at some remote control machinery, primarily for roadside mowing, but even some of our parks and reserves on roadsides. Under the Safety Act, if you're operating within 3 metres of a carriageway, you have to have traffic control, which is quite onerous. While if there's a human on the mower, so we're looking at getting remote control ones, so the operator can stand more than 3 metres away from the traffic lane and can operate the machinery. So less time setting, you don't have to set up traffic control, because if you're going to operate in an 80k zone, people, you have to drop it to 40k's, which means you need traffic control. So once that machinery comes in, it will make it a lot safer for WHS and less time consuming for setup and shutdowns.
So when you're saying when that machinery comes in, does that mean they're going to
We're in the final stages of a business case. So we've trialled like 5 or 6 different machines to find the most efficient one. It's also a slope mower, so you can get up areas that are too dangerous to take mowers on when they're slippery, 4-wheel drive. So they can do things, but we've done the business case, we've trialled the machines, we've picked the best one. We're just working through to finalise the business case. Once that's finalised, we'll purchase, hoping to have it before the end of the financial year.
So we are hoping to include it in the budget for next financial year to discuss it as we move through that budget
And
process.
that's just the one piece of equipment, the one mower.
That's the first one.
Yeah, sure.
Every time a piece of, we turn our machine over as it gets aged before it becomes more costly to maintain than it is to replace. And every time we do it, Plant Fleet looks in and goes, what is the best replacement? We've always looked at the most efficient piece of machinery. Sometimes they cost more, but the more you pay, the more you might save. That's why our sports field mowers we've got 20-foot decks on them. They can mow a sports field in like 40 minutes. It used to take us 3 hours. Things like that.
One last question for me, Nicole. You mentioned the timeframes around infrastructure, particularly in relation to footpaths, being hard to meet that target, given that a lot of work is done in the back half of the financial year, which I think is the same for playgrounds and other similar items. Does that mean we're going to adjust the targets for next year so it reflects that you're suggesting?
Not to reduce the target. The projects where the footpaths were going to be attached to have been delayed.
Okay.
So that work cannot be completed until those projects progress.
Which projects they are?
Unfortunately, I don't have the information of key projects at hand, but can certainly provide it back to the committee. So while those projects were delayed starting, nothing that could be done to fast track those projects to enable that work to be completed. However, that work that has been committed in this year for those projects being rolled over into next year's plan.
That's perhaps something we can touch on the Infrastructure and Assets Committee, because I'd have to think one of those would be Stain Road. Saratoga. Other questions?
Yes, really a comment.
Councillor Castle, she's had a hand up for a while.
We normally take voting members first. So you're all right to go?
Okay. Just to emphasise that there's generally 2 complaints are the most common complaints I received the community. One is potholes, which is probably predictable, but the other one is vegetation around roads and sort of towns and CBD. Whether that's just something that arises from the period of the year, around Christmas, where there's a lot of rain or not, but it's certainly something that we are very keen into. So it is important that we do focus strongly on that. One question to Ms Jenkins in relation to the disability inclusion action plan. I might hear what you finished on saying, that you thought that would be finished by the end of the year.
The project team is working for adoption the council before the end of financial year, which would mean that we could commence the implementation. And the committed action was implementation. The plan is on exhibition at the moment, so community consultation.
So it will be adopted, but we won't actually comply with the implementation because it will be too late.
Being February, we're now in exhibition period. It is possible for council to adopt it in a meeting before June, in which case we would commence implementation just before.
How long would the actual implementation likely to?
We would only be starting the implementation of the plan. It's a 4-year plan.
So for 4 years.
So it would be at least to wait to the adoption and to commence implementing first actions. And I believe, obviously, council was aware of the timing for exhibition and the pre-work that has gone into preparing that. That has been part of previous quarterly updates.
I think we're aware of it. I guess there's still some disappointment with the delay, even if you know something's happening.
Councillor Castles?
Well, I think, Brad.
Oh, sorry.
Uh,
So, on that one, there's a lot of work within that plan that we're actually working on because they were part of the previous plan. So all of our play spaces will meet the DIAP plans for the previous one and the new one. So if we gets adopted, we will meet the targets for all our play space renewals for the year and other things like that.
So you're saying that if we adopt it within a certain time?
Yeah. If you adopt it before the end of the financial year, we will meet what would have been in it for this year for ours.
Councillor Castles.
Yes, thank you. I'm just going back, I think, 'cause I can't quite see properly on my screen through you, Chair, to, I think it's Brett Sherrar. You were mentioning regarding the remote control mowers, and obviously one of my main concerns is work health and safety, so that would stand as being obviously something I would be 100% supporting, and I can hear exactly what you're saying. I'm just interested to know whether at this stage, do you foresee this is going to mean there will be a reduction in jobs for people in that section? Or are you thinking that it would be a case of, I guess, in a sense, retraining some people to be able to operate these particular types of pieces of equipment, you know, obviously in the interests of work health and safety and efficiency. So I'd be interested just to get a little bit of your thoughts on that at this stage.
Through the chair, the idea of the remote control mower is to improve safety. It'll be the same people operating the remote control mower as the people who would operate the ride-on mower. And the idea is to drive on top of the safety, to drive efficiencies, because we already know we struggle to meet our KPIs for our roadside mowing. So it's not aimed at reducing staff. It's actually aimed at providing a better outcome for the same amount of money with increased safety.
Yep, thank you. I just wanted clarity around that.
Perfect. Any further questions for Ms Jenkins before we move on to Ms Galea? Perfect. Well, thank you very much.
My part of the presentation will focus on the financials, so essentially on the quarterly budget review. Pointed this way. All right. So as the committee would be aware, the quarterly budget review is a legislative reporting requirement mandated by the Office of Local Government. And this will be the second quarter that we will be preparing the review in the mandated format as well. So the information that's included. In terms of the process, when we go to the quarterly budget review, it's almost like we are doing a bit of a mini budget process where we engage with all units across the business and we review the budgets to make sure that the budget's aligned with the planned delivery of actions, any KPIs, and where necessary, we amend those budgets up or down. And for Q2, we also did, because it's mid-year, sort of you get a good idea of how you're traveling. It's a really good point in time. So we did have a good look at how we're comparing also to previous years, how like where we were in previous years and where we landed, to try and make sure that the budget is as accurate as possible. Doing the quarterly budget review meets the strategic plan in terms of good governance, partnerships and transparent financial stewardship. And by reviewing the budgets regularly, we make sure that we remain financially sustainable. So any adverse impacts are captured and addressed right away, and any opportunities are also taken up. So very high level numbers. Council receives monthly reports. So this presentation is more about the budget
and doesn't really talk about the variances so much as at the end of December, because they would have been covered in December monthly report. So overall, after we have done the quarterly budget review, council is projected to maintain a surplus. So council has got multiple funds. Collectively, to those funds is the consolidated fund. So that's general fund, drainage fund, domestic waste, and water and sewer fund. Due to the significant size of water and sewer and different drivers and regulatory frameworks, we always report on water and sewer separately. But this is overall where we're at. So in terms of actual results, we were at very small amount of surplus as at the end of December. Before we did the Q2 review, the projected full year budget was 11.8 million overall. After the Q2, that budgeted surplus projected dropped to 7.2 million.
So when you say after, do you mean at the end of the full year? 11.8 before Q2 and after Q2, as of
For the full year. So so the proposed budget we project to land end of June. So the before Q2 is before we reviewed the budgets for the whole year. So when we review the budgets, we review the budget for the whole year. What's left?
No favourite.
Sorry, I went to it looked the same to me. Sorry. So the drop in surplus is predominantly attributed to a change from a surplus to a projected deficit in sewer. So with water and sewer, the actual result as at the end of December was 13.7 million in deficit. Before we reviewed the budget, we had a budgeted full year surplus of 1.3 million. After Q2 and some adjustments that we're proposing, end of year proposed result is a deficit of 4.3 million. So that's going from the surplus to a deficit that takes up the that makes up for the drop in surplus for overall. The reason for that is with water and sewer over the last 2 years, we've taken an approach that the outcome to make sure that we deliver the outcomes as planned, the current IPAR determination. So, and if achieving that outcome required spending more than we strictly budgeted, that's been the focus. In terms of carrying a deficit with water and sewer, there are sufficient funds available in terms of cash. So there is no cause for concern for a temporary deficit. Once we, at the moment, as council is aware, as committee is aware, there's the next determination with IPART for consideration. Once that comes back, so we need to see what they're going to approve. And based on that, we will look at the budget settings to make sure that the business is sustainable. The IPAR determination has got planned the use of restricted funds in water and sewer, for water and sewer. So, but overall, we need to make sure that the business doesn't continue to operate at a deficit in continuing. This is not sustainable. There are no concerns at the moment.
If the IPART approves our application, will it revert back to the normal budget or not?
So essentially, we will start off a new period of budget. So it will start from 26, 27 for 5 years. Built in the submission, there is a proposal to use existing cash because there's a backlog of work that needs to be done. So the logic of that is that that money, we collected the money through charges over the last few years. And it's okay to use that money to catch up with the work that we plan to do. So it may not be served. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the plan is that essentially we use some of the funds already available in addition to the charges raised. So that makes sure that we're not increasing the prices for residents.
I suppose what I'm trying to confirm is that if IPART approves our application, do return to the same budget position as we would have been.
It will be a new budget. So this is the
That's what-
current
sorry.
financially.
Yeah, no, I suppose I'm putting budget a loose way. We would be in the same financial position as we would have been.
Yeah, so this submission to IPART has got, we've requested a certain level of income. Plus we're also proposing to use cash that's already available to fund the required level of expenditure. So depending what IPART comes back with. So if we are not allowed to increase the fees as much as what we proposed, then we may have to use more of the restricted funds, but we may have to drop expenditure. So it just depends. We'll have to review. It's a bit quite challenging at the moment. Planning for what might be approved because they could give us more money as well with money. But in terms of, probably to answer your question, in terms of the financial settings of the business, at the moment, at this point in time, we're projecting a deficit because our focus is to deliver everything. So it's okay to use existing cash. Come the new determination, we have to monitor that there may be deficits in some years whilst we're using existing cash, but that cannot continue forever because the existing cash that we haven't spent in the past is not going to be there forever. So as we're depleting that cash to carry out the backlog of works, then the income and expenditure each year needs to be sustainable. So we're not aiming to carry deficits forever. That will not be sustainable. What that's going to look like, we will have to look at when IPART comes back with their determination.
What I'm trying to work out is what will be the situation if they do agree. We'd have to anticipate that's high likely.
Yeah, so over the 5 years, there is an accumulation of surplus over the 5 years, but in individual years, depending on the timing of expenditure versus income, plus when we have to use restrictions, there may be deficits in some years, but over the 5 years, it's building up surpluses because we also need to make sure that we're building up the cash to fund capital works, the water and sewer. Yes, yeah, but it's not neatly each year. So with excluding water and sewer, there's a very annual focus that we will make sure that each year we balance the budget as at a minimum. With the water and sewer, it's a bit of a different approach when we look at the period of the determination because the expenditure you need to undertake in 1 year may not necessarily align with the income that you're going to receive in that year. So, and because you've got the cash being set aside via restriction, there's that buffer there that even a year you run a deficit, you still got the cash. But you cannot be running deficits every year. That's not the plan. If IPART comes back with challenging determination,
That means no.
we will have to have a look at that here.
And it comes back in late May, is that correct?
Okay, so setting aside water and sewer, as at the end of December, we were at 13.6 million projected surplus. Before Q2 adjustments, we were at 10.5 million. We've been able to improve that projected result slightly by $1 million in water and sewer. So we recall in the beginning, I said that the surplus will drop from 11.8 to 7.2. That drop consists of the surplus in water and sewer turning into a deficit, and offsetting that is the slight improvement in everything else. So the budget review, pretty much we do line by line, but obviously we're not listing everything here and we're just highlighting some major changes. So one of the major favourable changes that we included in this review is a reduction for the Shelley Beach waste site remediation provision of 5.4 million. So with our waste facilities, we do need to provide to remediate, and that's a liability we have to account for. And each year that provision gets reviewed. There's a formula, and there's assumptions that go through that, and auditors look at that as well. And what makes up that the amount we need to keep in the provision is the works that need to be done, the cost and the timing. And then there's also indexations, etc. So there's lots of input that goes into that calculation. The original amount we were holding for this particular site was calculated quite a few years ago, revised each year, but in the last couple of years, we did a detailed review of exactly works that needed to be done. And what that came back as is that we can use, like essentially we don't need to hold as much money for that. So it's good because it's the same, at the end of the day, it's the same work. They would have been benefited, it's costing us more money. The other favourable adjustment we have is council carries out works for the MS.
Transport for New South
Transport for
Wales.
New South Wales. I was going to say RTA there for a minute. My age. So we carry out works for them with their contractor, and obviously that costs us money to undertake, but we also charge them for that. When we looked at where we projected to be in terms of income and expenditure, we are able to maintain the current projected income, but spending less. So essentially, we're ahead by about 700,000. We've had a look at our projected fuel costs, and we're able to reduce that as well. And we are decreasing the amount put aside for the EPA waste levy by 3.8 million. However, that has got part of the reason for that is that the projected income from the gate fees at the waste facilities, we needed to reduce that. So because less rubbish is coming in, then there's less levy payable. So
Big change, though. That's a very big change.
yes, so and that's just a reflection of the market and the competition at the moment. In terms of the gate fee. So we haven't really changed what we're doing, it's just what's coming in through the gates. We're on to the unfavourable changes now. So we also have, we're required to adjust the budget for unrealised gains / loss on investment. So as council, as the committee would be aware, council's investment portfolio has got term deposits in it, so cash we have at the bank. And we also hold floating rates notices. Generally, floating rate notices tend to be more with lower rated institutions, so more triple Bs and lower. Based on, so council's policy and strategy allows us to invest a certain amount in the lower rated institution. And if the committee recalls, when the policy came to council, went to council for review, there was a general direction that council reduces exposure in the triple B. So in line with that direction, and at the time there was quite a fair bit of instability overseas with the market. So we concurred with that approach, that at that time that was appropriate. So what we've done since then, whilst we have got room in the policy and in the strategy to invest more in the lower rated FRNs or term deposits, we've chosen not to. So generally they do tend to carry a bit higher rate. So that is something that perhaps committee and council could consider, like if we, and there's no formal resolution for this, it was more a discussion on the floor of council
I
that.
thought there was actually a resolution. I thought we amended the report.
We did amend the policy,
Yeah.
but it's to a maximum amount, and we've got then the discretion to move within that range
Right,
below
yes.
the maximum. What Emma's saying is that we're operating lower than the maximum due to the volatility in the market. So we're reducing our risk exposure, but we're also reducing our potential in that space. So
A couple of questions on that, because that is something I noticed from the documents. So we've obviously gone through the process of working with Perpetual to carry out an investment strategy. Firstly, when's that up for review, or is it an ongoing process?
Yeah, essentially they can do it for us every 6 months. So probably not too far actually from being reviewed again. But in that strategy, we've got rigor room, so we won't need to change the strategy or the policy to go back to investing more in triple Bs, because we have actively, when things have matured of the triple Bs, we have not invested. So we haven't invested in triple Bs for a number of months now, not because we're not allowed to in the policy or strategy, but because of that general direction that was given at the time.
Because I think their view on that very well may change at this current point in time. You know, we've obviously had a interest rate increase, so that might make some investment vehicles more attractive than they previously were. You know, we sort of had this policy at a time when interest rates were going down. So, look, as you know, I'm very adamant that I think the whole policy needs to be amended by the state government. It beggars belief that was.
Send them a letter.
I will. I'm working on it. I'm working on a few things with that. But, like, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like if it shows that the most we can do to get any yield is these floating rate notices, and even then we're simply losing money on them. So
We're not actually losing.
Yes, so probably I should clarify that. So this is budget adjustment. So traditionally, before this year, we actually never used to budget for unrealized gains. Kind of we just brought them in each quarter, and then we got there was quite a strong trend that every quarter we're bringing in money. So when we did the budget for this financial year, we budgeted an amount. What's happening here is we added a budget for loss and we reduced the budget for gains because we're not thinking that we had previously approved it, not necessarily because the rates have changed, but because of lesser exposure, we've got lesser exposure to gains. And we've got there's no need to formally change like a policy or a strategy. We can invest now, go back and investing at triple base and still be within the approved framework.
So when you talk about, obviously, when you're investing money, there's many types of volatility. When you're not wanting to invest in triple B rated investment vehicles, what's the volatility that you're concerned about?
So it's not so much, it's, I suppose the rating what summarizes the risk exposure. The reason why when we get quotes or when we have investments maturing and we're getting quotes, the reason why we've been opting to go with the higher rated institutions is purely because of the general council direction that was given at the time when we adopted the policy. So we are quite comfortable when we reduce the policy and the exposure in that, we're quite comfortable with the level of exposure in the current policy, and Perpetual also are more than comfortable if we work within the policy. So we're going more conservative. So there's no specific concern I have. I'd be quite comfortable to invest in triple base because we are guided by, the likes of Perpetual.
Yeah, because I suppose when you think about it, the point I would make when people are talking about market volatility, they're talking about strong US dollar, Trump tariff war, invasion of Venezuela, shifting emerging market policies. We are investing in DPIs that are lending to local businesses, families. That credit line, I would have to think, is fairly safe.
But once you have volatility in the market internationally, it affects the rates that are available locally. It's not, we're not a sort of our own isolated financial system.
Sure, but anyway, I disagree with that. But continue the presentation.
Well, I think if I may interject here, I think we can take on board the general approach that over the period of this term of council, there had been a move to lower our exposure to triple Bs through the policy and the strategy, that there was some discretion afforded within that range, that perhaps we'd gone a touch too conservative, but we're only partway through the year, so we can relax that back out of it, still stay within the policy and try to recoup some of these.
Because I suppose really the only thing we're concerned about when we're investing in something like that is the risk of loan default. It's the risk of a small family business or a high net worth individual moving money through something like Bendigo Bank, suddenly no longer being able to maintain that loan. But yeah, I see that quite uncorrelated with global markets. So I would agree with that statement. I'd be wanting slightly more exposure because look, that's essentially
if we had been investing that money in an index fund and 6.5%, that would be a positive. Now that the realm that we have to play in, which is obviously a state government thing, has meant that we've essentially left $1.6 million on the table that we could have invested elsewhere and made money on.
And I think the key takeaway here is that we have not lost any money. It's that we maybe were highly ambitious in the gains that we would achieve, and we're just drawing those back a little bit. But
That is also fair.
we can wiggle around a little bit.
I mean, I'd argue that there's a bit of a missed opportunity that has gone by. I would have taken up like a lower rated institution with higher return that we opted not to do. But yeah, like if the council is comfortable to essentially, as I said, like we would not have been breaching the policy if we invested more, but we've just taken council's direction. And it was at the time where there was instability with the US dollar. That was the time frame at the time.
And you might correct me because I don't have it handy, but our investment earnings are still above the benchmark rate. So
Yes.
we're not doing badly at all.
Yeah.
We're still above the benchmark rate. So that's a positive.
Slosh.
What are you worried about?
That we are.
He wants to make more money.
Yeah.
He thinks that we invest in more within policy.
Too prudent or
Yeah, I
We
think
should
that.
be more crazy.
That there's an
less
opportunity.
risk averse or?
Yeah.
But the policy itself, it's very conservative. So when we before we put the policy up, we did some comparisons with other councils and their exposures, and we were not outliers. We were with the higher range, but with the new policy now, how we've reduced it. So it's not that if we invested in triple B, it would be not prudent. There's still, you know.
What is the breadth of the range? Thing that we're within the range.
I think it was up to 25, maximum 25%.
So it's 0 to 5%.
No more than 25%.
Yeah.
Look, I think what we'll do is we'll take on board that feedback. We'll look at settings, we'll make some adjustments, and maybe at the next governance committee, we'll provide some additional feedback on that so that we can make sure that we're all comfortable with the approach. Does that sound like a good approach?
But even I'm just thinking whether we could include it in investment reports. Going up to council if we want to be able to take action earlier.
Yeah. So the investments reports come to council every month.
I thought it was.
Yeah, it is.
Again, and some comments in the investment.
I suppose also in terms of not rushing it, is if there is a review from Perpetual coming up, it's probably worth them getting their opinion on it because they might disagree. They can do a whole bunch of financial modelling on it. They have financial forecasts, they have outlooks at a macro level. So perhaps we can find out when that is and if it's soon.
We'll follow up on that for the next committee meeting, if not beforehand in a council report.
As indicated in earlier slides, we are proposing to increase the budget for water and sewer for operating expenses by 5 million. So that's the major driver of the deficit there, and there's just purely reflecting that acceleration of expenditure to make sure we don't need. There's been increase in budget for some IT equipment. Then we have had an increase in loss on disposal of 1.7 million. So this came up at the January meeting. There were some questions around that. So this is bringing the budget in to reflect it. And a lot of that came through due to where we've had to replace existing assets because new assets came on board. So we had Transport for New South Wales. There were some assets donated there related to the Pacific Highway upgrade from Carson's Road to Oringa. So essentially we still had a value of our roads there and we had to write that off. And that was 400,000. Same kind of scenario, but with donated assets from developers. There was 600,000 relating to the basin and terrace. And then there was some roads where we had to plan that treatment. but it was, we had to do a different treatment, and therefore we had to change the value there. And there was also where there was developer contributions, and we had to. And then there was 200,000 for items like plant and open space again. So every time there's a remaining asset value on the books, when you replace it, we have to take up a loss. And then we've had an increase in depreciation of 3.5 million. So about $500,000 of that relates to donated assets. So when we take assets on board, we have to bring into account the depreciation as well. And then the balance of that was predominantly due to the revaluation of assets, if the committee recalls, last financial year. So we did the revaluation in one financial year, and the impact of the increased depreciation is felt the following year. We had allowed for that, but until you actually did the revaluation, no. So in the scheme of things, of about 3 million is not really much in terms of our depreciation number is quite large. So
The asset value going up as well.
So when we revalue the assets value goes up. So the other adjustments that we've done relate to capital grants and contributions. The main key points there are we have taken on board $34 million worth of developer donated assets. So they're predominantly road infrastructure assets. As I said, there's an impact on depreciation. We have reduced some of the capital grants due to changes in the timing of project delivery, which we will talk about a bit later. And we were able to increase the developer contributions, as in cash contributions, by 1.5 million. In terms of capital expenditure, I'm going to keep this high level because there's more detail to come. So essentially, overall, the budget for capital works is proposed to be reduced by 8.6 billion this financial year. And there's various reasons, including things like contractor shortages and other project delays. As at Q2, we had spent 103 million against 115 million, reflecting spending, and hence that's why we are revising the budget. And what we're doing there is making sure that we're aligning budget with delivery capacity, and also taking into account where we've had things like unplanned weather events and other challenges. So there's more information a bit later around that reduction. In the committees where council does publish a 4-year rolling program. So at the moment, so the budget change of 8.6 is in the current financial year. So that's an actual budget reduction that we would be doing if adopted. The outer years are an indicative program, and as Q2 was being worked through, there was also further detailed review being undertaken on council's overall pipeline of works. So just probably I won't say more about that because others after we present around how that will change, but this was when we were doing Q2, and further changes are proposed. This was completed.
I'll just go to Councillor Castles quickly. I can see she's got a question.
Yes, so yes, Chair, thank you. Of course, the slides have gone on now, but I just wanted to, I guess, ask about the IT one that you had previously, where I think it was $1 million, something along those lines. I didn't quite catch. Is this in relation to council's contract with, which obviously was a resolution of council with Tech One, or in terms of having to replace certain, I guess, equipment, etc., or is it something completely separate from that?
Through the chair. Thanks, councillors. Good pick up. You might remember that when council adopted the budget for the digital transformation back in June last year, that we had put through a 10-year plan of works.
Yeah.
And we signed a 10-year budget with our company, plus we had some additional works to roll that out over 4 years.
Yeah.
This is an adjustment across those 4 years. So it's an increase in this year, but what it means is that the overall budget isn't going to change. It will be just lower than planned in later years as we move forward through that process.
Thanks for that. Yep. Thank you.
So the committee might be aware that there's a detailed attachment that outlines all of the capital projects. One of the benefits of holding this as a joint meeting is that rather than dealing with that as part of the Q2 report, I'm aware that there's a detailed report in the Infrastructure and Assets Committee on our major projects. So we're proposing just to skip over the detail in this and push it all in together so we can discuss it. That's if everyone's comfortable with that approach.
Sure.
So that means this item's finished.
Perfect. I'll put the Okay, so I'm happy to move the recommendation as is on screen, knowing that we adopt the report. Do I have a second for that? Councillor Neal, all those in favour? Unanimous. Okay. On to the next item, which is item 2.2.
I'd like to invite our Chief Governance Officer, Ed Hock, to speak to this item briefly.
Thank you, Marissa. Through you, Chair. Very briefly, Council's current chair of its Audit Risk and Improvement Committee is required to resign in April. Councillors will recall that we were granted a 1-year extension of his term in July of last year to provide some operational stability as we continue to onboard councillors. In seeking that extension, Council also appointed 2 new independent members in July of last year. This report proposes that the longest serving independent member of the committee be nominated to be elevated to the chair. She's eminently qualified, a very strong communicator. She has a background in significant financial controller executive roles. She serves on multiple boards in a non-executive director capacity and has provided exceptional insight into the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee. She is recommended by the outgoing chair. She's recommended by the councillor member on the committee and clearly strongly recommended by the staff of the organisation.
Does anyone have any questions from
One
staff?
question, does she hold any other roles in other audit committees in other local governments?
No, I would want to confirm that, but her other appointments, to my knowledge, are on the boards of corporations, not in local government.
Now, what sort of corporation?
She's got a background in mining and metallurgy. She serves in her current substantive position in the Catholic Diocese of Maitland and Newcastle as their CFO. She's a non-executive director of Anglican school in Newcastle as well.
Any further questions? Well, I am happy to move the recommendation that it's board.
Let's ask one more question.
Sure.
Are we intending to fill, if we're obviously losing the chair, we're losing one member, are we intending to advertise to fill that additional vacancy as an ordinary member?
Thank you for that question through you, Chair. In appointing the 2 new independent members in July of last year, Council's decision was to carry essentially an extra to facilitate this transition. And the current chair has been working closely with Michelle Lawson to facilitate the transition to the chair of AREC. but we will have a full complement of 3 independent members, which is the minimum required, but it's a full complement of independent members, even when the current chair retires in April.
We don't need to do it.
Don't need to do it. And we have council has staggered the appointments of the current independent members so that we're not faced with an issue we had in early 2024 where we had 2 independent members drop off at the same time. This is all now effectively managed.
Thank you, Chair.
So I'm going to move the recommendation that's before us. Do I have a seconder? The Mayor, Mayor McKenna, a seconder. All those in favour? Unanimous. So I will with that close the meeting. Handing over to Councillor Stan. I know that the next meeting held at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, 12th of May, 2026 at the Wyong Administration Building. Just on that, are we going to be holding these committees at Gosford?
And the terms of reference for all of the committees by council resolution hold them at Wyong at the moment. Obviously, it is open to council to amend that at any time as they set the dates for meetings in the future. We have adopted meetings for this calendar year, but you could change that at any time. That we wait until we have had some meetings at Gosford, full
Okay.
council meetings before we make that decision.
We can discuss this at the lab then, I'm sure.
Is it, can we actually use it? Is it, every time we try to, the sentence people.
Yeah, so we've just rolled out the new IT
So it's like
and
Gosford.
planning that. So it'll be the upcoming meeting will be the test of how well it works.
Which, like, the next week.
It's a
We're not doing this.
March meeting.
Everyone's developed a rash already.
So the March meeting will be a full council meeting at Gosford and it'll be the test of the new IT that
How
will be
exciting.
January. Terrifying, depends on how you look at it.
I have to see all this jump up and down like we have to.
All right, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
We move on to
Perfect. Hi, welcome to your next meeting. What am I saying? I would just acknowledge that the chairperson of the previous meeting, Councillor Wright, has already given an acknowledgement of country and has also advised everybody in the room and online that the meeting is being recorded. This was in accordance with the meeting practice, so I will just move on to our next meeting item, which is the apologies and remote attendance. Councillor Castles and Councillor Daniels have both requested to be online, and I also have apologies from Councillor Eden and Councillor Smith. Does anybody else have any apologies to add? Yeah. In that case, I will move the above motion. All those in favour? Is Councillor Castles, we can't see you on the screen, so I won't be able to see if your hand is up.
Yeah, she's not.
Yeah.
I'm not a voting member, Chair.
Okay, perfect. No problem.
I don't know why you can't see me, but anyway, I am definitely here.
No, that's all right. Okay, perfect. In that case, that was unanimous. Now, disclosure of interest. Does anybody have anything to disclose, whether you are a member or not? Please let me know. Declare from anybody. Thank you. The confirmation of the previous minutes. I will move that this be confirmed.
seconded.
Perfect. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you very much. And now we move on to our first item. Capital Works update. Director.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As our CFO has had, Mr. Leo, have a bit of an overview in relation to where Capital Works is tracking. In relation to December, there is $103 million was expended against the phase budget of 115 million, which is within our KPI of 90%. So it is 90%. There are the purpose of the report is to also identify those major variances. So what we've done in this particular report to dovetail with that previous report is to identify the three major projects that are slightly delayed and moving the majority of that $1.6 million into next financial year. And I'll just briefly talk about those three projects. The first one is cell 4.5 at Buttontree. So that is required to move about $4.9 million out of a $15 million project into next year due to a design delay. So with those sort of large projects, it might only be a couple of months, but because it's moving by that 2 months, it is of about that $4.9 million. So it's hard to land these right on the button as of 30th of June because there are ups and downs, and that's certainly one of them. The other project is Stein Road. So that's a grant funded project. That has been something that's been discussed in council previously, just in relation to Indigenous heritage reports that need to be obtained for this project, and that has caused a delay in that as well. That's about $2 million that is moving from this financial year. And the last one is the Marty water treatment plant. So that's $3.5 million out of a $71 million project. So it's about 5%, which is moving to next financial year. So that's a high level summary in relation to those major changes that we've got in relation to this financial year.
Just a question, which may be to yourself, Director, or possibly to Director Malara. When you're talking about the budget being rephased and the money being deferred, can you give us a bit of an extrapolation on that?
Essentially, to you, Madam Chair, essentially we're only moving it into next financial year. So we can often do the rephasing, on a monthly basis, 12-month period, and you don't see it tipping over into that next financial year. But because this is at the end, we're looking at moving it slightly into that next financial year. Because over 2 years, you wouldn't see anything, and we wouldn't have to. But we do work, in financial years. So that's where that $8.6 million is moving next financial year. I don't know if that makes it any clearer, but it is phasing into another financial year rather than totally next financial year.
All right.
Stein Road, Saratoga. So my understanding is that project's been committed by the federal government for a number of years. How long has the project been held up by the AHIP assessments, and do we have a costing on how much council spent on that?
It has been held up for quite some time. I couldn't give the exact duration. In relation to the Aboriginal Heritage Assessment, we're estimating the spend to be around $50,000, and it depends if additional work is required. Once those reviews, if there's any other testing and archaeological dig type work that needs to be done.
And does that come out of council's budget or the grant funding?
That's project fund. Grant fund.
It's all right. Very careful. There you go.
That was quite scary. I raised this that I was councillor, right?
Be so lucky.
Yes, I've always wanted to be. The regional animal care facility, I've asked you about this earlier, Director. It's been a project that obviously is pretty important. It's been hanging around for quite a while. Don't mean it properly, but just people are keen to see it completed. There was some discussion last October to try and expedite the project. I think we did reject your proposition that we contract out and pay substantially more money, which is, I suppose, reasonable. Can you inform the committee of what other action might be able to be taken to expedite it?
Madam Chair, Councillor O'Neill. We did go through some detail in that report. That it was going to be more costly to do a design and construct. The team are looking actively in how to expedite some of those investigation works because of getting the services to the site were somewhat problematic, and that's why we didn't want to go through the design and construct component because we were unsure of how the services were going to be dealt with on site. So that has been instruction from me to review that, and that was why the commentary in this particular report is that staff are continuing to look at opportunities. I can't give you any more details than that, but I am aware the staff are looking at each component of those phases to make it, to truncate them, to bring the project in as early as they can.
Are we likely to receive a further report on this item? And if so, when do you anticipate that might?
Madam Chair, Councillor O'Neill, I wasn't planning on putting a report up. So if there was something of note, I'd certainly have discussion. If it was significant enough, it may warrant a report.
To ask questions of projects that aren't the 3 ones that you just listed. Giving it's the Infrastructure and Assets Committee.
I'm happy
On this.
to ask general questions, and if I'm unable to, so I'll take them on notice.
Oh, well, as I was looking at you, I can see you've got the A team of the Infrastructure and Assets portfolio behind you there. A couple of projects which spring to mind. You vote rent for Empire Bay.
It's not on the agenda.
No. Well, okay, Evoke Beach Shared Pathway.
Go ahead.
Warren Avenue Lookout. Either or.
Is there a question?
Just an update.
I think if there's any specific projects, I'd certainly welcome those in advance. I'll be able to get some more detail and share the information with the committee. I know the Voca Beach Shared Pathway is still being planned to commence this financial year. It's delayed, but that is still planned.
Councillor Castles.
Thank you, Chair. Just through you, I guess a comment. I know there's been some discussion around Stain Road and some other delayed projects due to various things, including Aboriginal heritage issues. Now, personally, I have to say I consider it to be an investment to actually look at making sure that we protect where we possibly can Aboriginal heritage and other heritage for that matter. And so perhaps looking through a lens of investment rather than it just being a cost would be a slightly different way of looking at it. I'll just leave that there.
Does anybody else have any comments on this agenda item? No, I will move the recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wright. All those in favour? Unanimous. Okay, moving on to our next agenda item, 2.2, regarding SOGO.
Okay.
Georgia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The report is a brief report based on a request from the committee. If there was any particular significant impacts in relation to FOGO and to provide that update through this committee. Council officers and myself did meet with the Office of Local Government late last year in relation to the expression of interest for the food, organics and garden or organics. And we were actually quite fortunate. We've got written advice indicating that we can go out to expression of interest without providing the full documentation, getting approval from the Office of Local Government. So I think it's a very good step forward in relation to the project, that it warranted an update of the committee, hence the report has been provided.
That's all right.
I've seen a few other councils rolling out their FOGO strategies in probably the last 3 months. Have you had any feedback from your colleagues at other councils about how it's going?
I don't know if we've got reviews from Western Resource Recovery.
Very good, Chair. Yes, we certainly collaborate with our with the other local government areas throughout New South Wales. Industry is quite close there, and also with the private delivery partners as well. Each situation is different. Basically, a lot of the regional areas in New South Wales have progressed down the line of introducing the FOGO service. That's the easy bit, it's the service. It's actually having somewhere to process it. There is nowhere basically locally here that has the capacity to process the boundaries we've got. We're just a larger, bigger area. And so some of those smaller regional areas have been able to implement low cost sort of solutions and just reuse it in their local area. But whereas you find that the large metropolitan areas, including Sydney, are point that they're trying to identify a place to undertake the processing, and the market need the contracts to underpin the investment of the infrastructure to process.
Be our local place to do it. I know it's not on the Central Coast, but we're most local place.
There is no current capacity to process the volumes that we have here on the Central Coast anywhere in this region. Stop. Something has to be built, and no one will build something unless they've got the contract to underpin the feedstock to underpin the investment. That's a chicken and egg sort of situation that we have. So that's why we basically have identified an opportunity to build something here at the Buttery Waste Management Facility. But when we go after the expressions of interest, the opportunity there for the market to come up with alternative technologies or locations. So, I guess to say.
I know it's a lot smaller. Sorry, through you, Madam Chair. Okay.
Yep.
It's blending.
No, this is on the same train of thought.
So, just ask. It's not small, big area, but small population, smaller council and so. And are they an example of using the FOGO locally? And
no, definitely not. So Maitland, Cessnock, and one other one into a contract probably about 7 years ago now, FOGO, and that hasn't been implemented. And their contractor, an off-site solution. That material is currently being picked up from a facility in the Hunter Valley and delivered to Sydney, where the sorting is taking place. It is delivered into central west New South Wales. Significant transport via the Sydney toll roads and large trucks.
you don't want to be doing that.
Yeah, because there is not the processing capacity in the region, but it's coming. It just needs the contracts to the first investment.
So I'm just going to ask a follow up on that really quickly. Would the plan be that if we had a facility, would there be a potential contracting model with Maitland Hunter area that instead of them trucking theirs Sydney, would they be sending it here? Not have capacity for additional.
So in accordance with the council resolution from the previous council meeting, it talks about alternative locations and commercial opportunities. We'll certainly, as part of the EOI process, we're teasing out there that what other locations, technology, commercial opportunities there may be. One of the advantages of it is that our waste management facility is we do control the weighbridge, and there is potential commercial opportunities to take in material from alternative locations under some sort of arrangement that we either have a lower cost processing fee or receive a dividend per tonne across the weighbridge. So we're looking at all those opportunities. I would say that the opportunities are not going to be north. The opportunities will be south and Sydney, particularly with our facility located on the M1 motorway and the like. So
A couple of questions. The first is the expressions of interest. Is it an expressive interest by invitation, or is anyone express an interest?
it's an open market expressions of interest, and we've done some market sounding already. There's significant interest in the market, and there'll be a large number of responses.
And has the council undertaken any discussions with prospective parties who might be putting on expression of interest today?
Very much so. So there was market sounding undertaken. It's actually an attachment to the business case that spelled out some of that market sounding did. We went to around about 8 or 9 companies with our partner, and there's also been subsequent discussions and meetings with significant players in the international market, capital markets.
Are you able to tell us who those people are?
That's an interesting question. I will say that the largest players. Yeah. I would say the largest players in terms of waste management within the country have all been to our Bunbury Waste Management Facility at a CEO or 2IC level. And some of the large companies, without naming the companies, so I can take that on notice, but some of the large capital partners as well, whether it's US investment banks.
I didn't catch that. The last thing you said.
The large capital partners. So everything from large American, US investment capital infrastructure companies through to Macquarie, etc. So
you would expect there'd be no difficulty with achieving the outcome we're seeking.
Definitely not a significant amount of interest because of the sheer volume of what we've got, and we've got an asset as well in terms of actually the ability to build something on a piece of land with buffers and existing infrastructure and the like. So there is significant market interest.
Anything else? Anybody else have any other questions on this agenda item? In that case, I will move the motion, which I believe was just noting this report. When we get up on the screen, do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Neal. All those in favour? Mayor McKenna, Councillor Neal, Councillor Daniels, and myself.
Right, it's running.
We already finished. And now for our final agenda item, the Wyoming Road Upgrade.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's no particular positive way forward in relation to this in what's been recommended. This came as a resolution of council to report back by February. Let's putting this through the appropriate committee so it can get to the February council meeting. It's essentially asking for an upgrade to Wyoming Road, and there is a list of ways that this type of work can be funded. We're currently not funding this type of work, and the avenue that's been suggested is potentially grant funded through state or federal members. And there's a couple of options in the paper for the committee to consider, or something else as.
Thank you. I think there's been a pretty comprehensive report here in terms of the available funding sources. That is probably all I can say. Options.
There is obviously an opportunity just to fund it from one of the listed options, so we could do that.
Madam Chair. Yeah. Yes, and that's where I identified the surplus.
That's number 3.
Correct.
But we could just budget for it next year's budget. I mean, I think we should, but we could do that.
It's possible, but I will just read the one sentence of the report. It is up on your screen, that it is likely that other similar projects may rank at a higher priority than the remainder of Wyoming Road, according to that section in the surplus section of the report. So yes, things can be budgeted, but it's all priority ranking.
I suppose to add to that, Madam Chair, if I was to look at other projects, if we were going to be doing upgrade works, so road upgrade works, this would be ranking 20, 30, 40%.
Is it anywhere?
You say it wouldn't be.
Wouldn't.
Is it anywhere in the forward?
Madam Chair, no, we're not actually funding any upgrade works roads in forward plan unless they have been funded through, essentially what's been identified through the federal government.
Councillor Walsh, did you still have?
I wanted to ask. No. So in terms of, looking at grant funding, anything in there that we could be contributing to, kick in, nothing in the.
Madam Chair, Councillor Walsh. It wouldn't qualify under the black spot funding program from our experience, and that would be the main one through a number of accidents that would generate a benefit cost ratio for the site, and they're already I've driven through it. Something that generate a high benefit cost ratio there, so we'll be able to attract funding, and other projects are more linked to active transport. So your path type works, and this requires curb and gutter.
One question, just because you mentioned it. What's the name of that grant program that's linked to active transport?
I think it's New South.
Active fit, isn't it?
South Wales Get Active.
That's okay, I'll put it in the portal.
There's two very similar programs.
Does anybody else have any questions? The staff on this agenda item. Case. We move the recommendation
Sure.
on the screen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 2 requires an adjustment.
Okay.
Because it's asking the committee to consider options provided. So there are 2 options provided as part of the report. Essentially, option 1, it says there isn't really much we can do, and option 2 reiterates the above, and seek support from the relevant. So they would provide grant funding to deliver project. So that to the committee for consideration.
Thank you so much.
Which they can.
Move an amendment. We have a second to that motion.
I don't think we have a mover, so.
I thought you were moving it.
No, I said, should we move? It was a question, and then have the amendment.
Sure, I'm happy to move the motion.
Okay, councillor Wright, and you want to second it? Perfect. Is that anyone want to second it?
You can second.
Mr Mayor?
I'd like to move an amendment. Now we have a motion on the floor. I'd like to move an amendment that we thank the community for the petition and their expression of their concern about this particular issue. And that secondly, that the funding for this item be assessed as part of the budget process. Weeks or so.
Do you have a seconder? Mr Mayor?
I wouldn't accept that just based on the information that the director's provided me.
That's all right. You don't accept it.
Okay, let's just tidy up the wording.
That we thank the community for their petition, expression of their concern about Wyoming Road. Wyoming Road from the Pacific Highway to approximately place. Five, that the funding for these works be considered part of the upcoming budget.
Probably number 2 in that case.
And delete item 2 as well.
The seconder was yeah. And that the you don't need to put confirms. That's great.
Okay, is that? Okay, perfect. All those in favour of this amendment, which includes councillor Neal's 4 and 5? I can't see the motion on the screen. 3 and 4. Thank you. All those in favour? Councillor Neal and Mayor McKenna. All those against? Councillor Daniels, Councillor Wright, Councillor Stanton. The amendment is lost. I put the motion, but I will just amend point 2. To reference that the committee considered, past tense, the option. And the wording. Elects to source the funding from grant funding, from developer contributions. Director, does that sound consistent with what is required? Or
Development contributions, because it wouldn't be necessarily an actus for this type of work, as I think. So, and grant funding, would be difficult. I think you, and correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Chair, that there is the ability to thank petition for their, submission and then jump into option 1, which is reiterate previous advice to residents that the upgrade of the Southern Section Road, blah, that remains on council capital works through, however, it's not currently considered the highest priority. That's what I was indicating earlier. And if you needed to add in something about grants after that, that could be possibly where you're trying to land this.
I think in that case, I think we would be the most consistent with what I think is option 2. We considered the options and provides a response to the resident petition. In line with option 2. Perfect.
Considers the options and provide.
Considered past tense, and now we're going to provide a response to the resident petition.
I'd just say option 2, yeah, that's what it is. Motion as a standalone. A valid motion.
I think I was going to suggest that it's actually defined as option 2 held within the body of the report. So I think there's only one option 2 in the body of the report.
General rules that it was drafting of motions. It must be self-contained. I mean, look, we do it all the time, but people should be able to read the motion but many times, but I just.
I think it's okay to leave it as option 2, but I take your point, Councillor Neal. In the interest of saving our civic team having to type that out right now and delaying the end of the meeting, I'm happy
We
to.
might add that after the fact.
Yeah, I'm happy to put that in after and they can transpose the item into there. If everybody is okay with that, they'll word it accordingly. In that case, we can now vote. All those in favour of the motion? Councillor Daniels, Mayor McKenna, Councillor Wright, Councillor Stanton. All those against? Councillor Neal. And I will now close the meeting at 7:54 p.m. Our next meeting of the Infrastructure and Assets Committee is Tuesday, the 12th of May here at Wyong. Thank you all for coming for this very exciting joint meeting. Thank you to both directors and all of the amazing staff. Yes.
Do we need to specify all costs that it's a workable venue?
No. That's minimum.
That's.